Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Bolton, and I'm going to go over the second forum scenario. All right. So first, we'll just read it real quickly. It says you are a commercial rated pilot. A friend has asked for you to cover for him as he's going on a trip with some jet time, and you agree to fly to your local radio station DJ around the city to cover the traffic watch segment during the morning rush. During your flight, there's a car crash. You've been asked to circle at low altitude. How do you handle the situation? What are all your considerations? Okay, so um, the main consideration is going to be obstacle clearance and then performing the maneuver in my book. So safety and getting the actual visibility on the aircraft that the DJ may need to be able to report it. Okay, so obviously, step one would be doing some clearing turns, right? So at a car accident, there may be other air traffic in the area. Maybe a helicopter news crew or somebody is also reporting on the crash, and you want to make sure that there's no other air traffic in your area as well as obstacles. So being able to check not only on your moving map or on your chart, but visibly for any kind of towers and obstructions. So when we're talking about the route, um, primarily obstacles, is going to be the main thing here, but not just how far away are the obstacles. Like I would want to make sure that I keep at least 2,000 foot horizontal separation from the obstacle when I'm flying, as well as maintain a minimum of 500-foot altitude um, above that obstacle. So if you're flying close to the ground, there are quite a few towers and things that are going to be going 100, 200 feet, which could easily eat into your pivotal altitude, which I'll get into in just 1 second. Um, the other consideration is my moving track along the ground. If there are obstacles in the area, how do I need to fly to be able to avoid those and maintain my safe distances away of 2,000 feet? If it's going to be an issue where I can't fly a turnaround a point, for example, can I instead change up the pattern, fly an elongated box over top of it um, instead of doing a circle? Can I can I do like a figure eight in some sort of manner? Anything I can do to kind of like adjust that ground path to keep myself safe, and then still be able to give my passenger the ability to see what he wants to see. Um, Maybe even just flying a turnaround a point, but making it more of like an oblong. So, like a lazy traffic pattern, if you will. The other consideration for the route will be if there happens to be an emergency at low altitude, then where can I land? So if you're flying over a traffic accident, obviously you're over some roads or something. Are there fields? If you're at a low altitude, you don't have as much time to react, glide to a safer distance. So where would your emergency landing be? That would also maybe convince me to fly a different pattern over the obstacle depending on the environment. I wouldn't want to be circling over a jagged mountainside if I could maintain um, distance over like flat ground and flat hills and things on the opposite side. Um, Also, taking into consideration the route, I would think is the wind. Which direction is the wind coming from? If the wind is blowing heavy on one side, which makes me have to bank the turn sharper um, in a way that the passenger at that moment can't even see the accident. Maybe I need to fly the pattern the opposite direction. So turn around and fly that circle um, or that figure eight or that box pattern in a different way so that he could see and I could still correct for the wind drift, which it's it's more like common sense to think in the air than to say it out loud. But am I drifting from the wind and crabbing into the wind, for example, in a manner that it puts the accident almost behind us, visibly? So, what kind of things can I do to make it a little bit easier for them to see and then get the job done? Also, depending on the aircraft that I'm flying, what speed, what radius of a turn around the point do I want to do, and then what bank angle. So they all kind of like play into that pivotal altitude, which we can go into. So if you're flying 90 knots, the pivotal altitude based on that chart and the AFM is like 700 something feet. Is that going to be high enough altitude to maintain your obstacle clearance on the ground, give you the bank angle that you want, and be able to turn around the point, and then completely safely do the maneuver. Um, the other thing that I would say is more in an environment aspect is, maybe it's early morning accident and there's a lot of haze on the ground or in the air or fog, on the ground, then, am I even going to be able to see the accident from my altitude? Or maybe if I get lower, does that fog layer kind of stack up and now I'm more in the fog and it makes it a little bit more difficult for you to see anyway. So maybe maintaining a higher altitude would be more beneficial in the long run. So how does that play into it? As far as the trip goes, the trip I would just take into consideration, well, did I plan on using this fuel? It says in here that, you've been asked to circle low altitude during the car crash. It's hard to tell if that was actually a part of the trip because it seems like they're just going to monitor the traffic and then during your flight you find the car crash. So how much time am I going to spend circling around and how much fuel do I have on board? How much reserve am I going to eat into, that sort of thing. So fuel would be my main consideration as well as time. If you had worse weather coming in a few hours and you're planning on being back and now you decide to extend your trip by an hour of circling over this accident, then at what point are you pushing yourself into more dangerous territory with returning during bad weather? As the pilot is concerned, um, my main concern would be, can I perform this maneuver in this aircraft successfully without any additional risk to myself or anybody else on board? How proficient am I at the maneuver? Is the last time that I did the maneuver during my commercial check ride, or do I do these often? Do I fly aerial survey on the side, and this is just like a gig that I'm filling in, and I'm very proficient? Then that would certainly change the scenario, and I would feel less hesitant. But if this is the first time flying this plane in a very long time with a passenger, with trying to multitask, and you're going to be somewhat saturated, managing all the instruments, flying close to the ground, reacting to the demands of trying to go higher, trying to go lower, circling in certain ways, and talking on the radio. So take it easy on yourself if you're not fully proficient, and play into that a little bit, and maybe circle at a higher altitude or something where you can keep your speed up and not have to worry about obstacles and things like that. The aircraft considerations I would take is first I would set my bank angle in my mind. Let's say I don't want to exceed 50 degrees of bank. Well, that would be my maximum bank angle. What speed do I need to maintain to stay at a stalling speed for that maximum bank angle? So if your stalling speed is 90 knots or whatever at 50 degrees, based on this aircraft, well, I don't want to exceed my 50 degrees or go slower than my 90 knots, and that's kind of like my boundary layer. So that would be something that I would set in my mind as a standard as I'm performing the maneuver, not to exceed a certain bank angle based on that stalling speed, and then keep my stalling speed higher than that. And that will give you your safe limits, so you can always lessen your bank angle to make adjustments, and then you'll always feel safe from having to stall in that way. Another thing that goes into the environment aspect, other than the haze or visibility requirements, at nighttime, maybe there are illusions, visual illusions, like we learned about in the private pilot scenarios. But basically, some illusions I can think of I wrote down here. The lower that you fly, the faster you appear to go. And it's kind of like, you think about if you drive a tall truck and then you get into a small car, even though you're going the same speed, you always feel like you're going significantly faster, closer to the ground in a car. And that's just you're relative to the ground. So if I'm flying my pivotal altitude at a much lower altitude than I normally practice, let's say I normally practice at these set pivotal altitude, and then I come in, I want to fly much lower. Well, I'm going to feel like I'm going a lot faster, and then I'm going to feel like turning my bank much sharper because undoubtedly I will have to, um, or fly faster across the ground at a wider circle to compensate. But you're going to feel like you're going faster than you are. So that may feel like your initial reaction is to slow down the aircraft when you should be maintaining that speed. So that's just one visual illusion that I can think of. Another thing with the environment, and this is the last one that I'll finish up with, is can I do this successfully without disturbing people on the ground? So obviously people are already disturbed on the ground from the accident, and there's probably going to be ambulance and fire trucks or whatever is responding to the accident if it's significant. But are there going to be people worried about an aircraft crashing? Like how low can you fly to the point where people start questioning why is the aircraft so low? Like you hear it all the time. And even if it's a safe maneuver, people see an aircraft really low to the ground and they get suspicious. They report it to the police. They will, take pictures. We even had an incident in our school where somebody decided to fly over a river, 100 feet or something off the ground, and it got reported from ATC to the school. So it's not something that you see all the time. Even if you are safely flying it, it's not something that people are used to, and that may make them suspicious and question it. So that may disturb the people in that way. Also, are you going to disturb any kind of communities where people are living? Are you going to disturb the people working on the ground? And are you going to be able to avoid disturbing maybe like any kind of livestock? So if there's a herd of cattle that's right there, you decide to fly, I don't know, really low to the ground and it scares them. And, potentially a large herd of cattle can, upset and move. And it's just one more moving puzzle that you don't need to complicate an already probably complex scenario with the accident and everybody working. So how low can you fly without actually disturbing anything on the ground? Okay, that's all I can think. I can't wait to look forward to, I look forward to reading everybody else's posts and watching your videos as well. Thank you.